It's the 12th day since the outbreak of the zombie virus. Communication has failed, water and electricity have been cut off, and the city has fallen into stagnation. I sighed as I looked at the bald green basket plant. I've eaten everything that can be eaten and even turned corn kernels from pillow stuffing into porridge. But now, I've reached the point of running out of supplies. If I continue like this, starving to death at home is only a matter of time. Since I can't survive as a human, why not join the ranks of the zombies? My eyes suddenly became determined. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Decisively, I removed the peephole from the door and extended my finger outside. Dear zombies, please bite gently. I was like an old man fishing. After waiting for 2 hours, the bait remained untouched. I became angry. I forcefully opened the door and shouted outside. What are you all doing? Come and bite me. Silence was the only response I received. What's going on? Did the zombies disappear? Summoning up my courage, I walked out. As I turned my head, I was met with the sight of a handsome paleface behind the door. That handsome zombie was staring at me intently, a strange smile on his lips, as if he had been waiting for this moment when I stepped out of the house. Such a cunning trickster. Can you bite gently? I'm quite afraid of pain. The zombie's smile remained unchanged. Just as I was about to offer my arm, someone pushed me aside. Let me go first. My boyfriend has mutated, and I need to be with him quickly. I was shocked. People are actually fighting over this? Taking a closer look, I realized it was her, so it's not surprising. She was my neighbor next door, who attempts suicide for love an average of 3 times a month, causing chaos among the residents, truly deserves the title of a love-struck brain. All right, you go first. I took a step back. I watched helplessly as the girl rushed towards the zombie. And then she died. Jesus. Can she still turn into zombie in this condition? I don't want to remember the following scene whenever it comes to mind. So, Plants vs. Zombies is actually a documentary. This thing actually eats your brain. I wanted to run, but my feet felt like they were nailed to the ground. That handsome zombie licked the blood off his lips, leaving behind the body of the girl, and his lifeless gaze turned towards me. I trembled in fear. I just remembered that there's something I need to take care of at home. How about we do this another time? He took a step towards me. I'll eat more walnuts to boost my brain power during this time, and then I'll come find you. Is that okay? He kept moving closer. All right, just be quick about it, so I don't have to suffer for too long. Sigh, this sucks. I didn't turn into a zombie, but I'm about to turn into a corpse. I closed my eyes in resignation. But the expected pain didn't come. When I opened my eyes, the zombie was standing in front of me, looking strangely. His gray eyes scanned me from head to toe, and a hint of blush appeared on his pale face. I was puzzled. What's wrong? Did you eat too much just now? The zombie didn't say anything, but the blush on his face became more pronounced. His gaze started to avoid me, looking in different directions, but not daring to meet my eyes. What's going on? Could it be that some other virus in that girl's brain? This is a good chance. If I don't run now, when will I? I rushed towards the door, but the zombie was faster than me. He grabbed my wrist. I panicked and shouted. What are you trying to do? The rest of my words got stuck in my throat. I stiffly looked down. I saw his strong arms holding me around the waist. The zombie buried his face in my neck, and the icy touch made my hair stand on end. Then, something even more intense happened. I felt something wet and soft sliding along my skin, as if it was testing which part of my flesh would be more convenient to bite into, and then use its sharp teeth to break my skin and turn me into its kind. Although this was my ultimate goal for going out today. But when this moment really arrived, I panicked. What kind of messed up world is this? I'm about to turn into this inhuman creature without even having been in love. Get your disgusting mouth away from me, you're making me sick. I cried and cursed, my anger could sustain 10 evil spirits. The instigator of all this chaos also panicked. He came around to face me, helplessly wiping away my tears, his face filled with worry and confusion. His lips moved, and finally, a few unclear sounds came out. Don't cry. This thing can actually speak? 3 words appeared in my mind: humanity is doomed. Back home, I leaned against the door and let out a heavy sigh. Just now, the handsome zombie wiped away my tears. But suddenly, a muscular zombie appeared behind me, moving swiftly and reaching me in the blink of an eye. Just as I was about to be shot in the head, the handsome zombie extended his arm and blocked the gaping mouth, the sound of teeth-piercing flesh sending shivers down my spine. The two of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. The inhuman speed, the deadly moves, how could they not be described as bloody? Although I didn't understand why the handsome zombie saved me, it was a rare opportunity. I quickly crawled and rolled back home to escape. One of my biggest characteristics is being fearless, and I quickly fell asleep once I lay on the bed. I slept soundly, and even dreamt of someone I hadn't dreamt of in a long time. The person's face gradually merged with the handsome zombie's until they looked exactly the same. But when I woke up, I couldn't remember what I had dreamt about no matter how hard I tried to recall. My memory is getting worse day by day. The room was already pitch black at this point. I pressed on my empty stomach that was as flat as it could be. I was really hungry, craving hot pot. Just as I was thinking about it, a faint knocking sound came from the door, so soft it was pitiful. I cautiously picked up the baseball bat leaning against the wall. Who is it? The person outside didn't say anything, but instead slipped something through the already damaged peephole. I took a closer look. Oh my, it's a sausage! The rescue team must have arrived. With excitement, I opened the door and hugged the person. You finally came. The person in my arms stiffened for a moment, accompanied by a faint smell of blood. That's when I realized something was wrong. I slowly looked up, and my face instantly fell. Why is it him? The handsome zombie, with a wounded mouth, hooked his lips in an appeasing manner and handed me a pile of food. Eat. I struggled for a few seconds, then decisively started gobbling down the food. I had no choice, I was just too hungry. But when I looked up again, the handsome zombie in front of me had already disappeared. Hey, he's quite considerate. I quickly closed the door, fearing that a muscular zombie would appear out of nowhere in the next second. I fumbled my way back to the bedroom in the dark. Just as I was about to lie down on the bed, I caught a glimpse of something moving. Who? Every hair on my body stood on end. There was someone else in this room, besides me. He was sitting on the railing of the balcony, his back facing the moonlight, so I couldn't see his face clearly. Do you have any food? Instinctively, I hid the unfinished bread behind me. No, I don't. It rained last night, and I forgot to lock the balcony door with an iron chain after collecting rainwater. This gave the man an opportunity to enter. He stood up and walked slowly towards me, and that's when I saw the bloodstains on his mouth and collar. I had a gut feeling that it wasn't blood from an animal or a zombie. He had killed person. No wonder I kept hearing the sound of meat being chopped and chewing coming from upstairs these past few days. I can only assume that my unfortunate neighbor has already met his end in the hand of this unfamiliar man. Give me what you have in your hands. I trembled and immediately presented the bread with both hands. Is this all you have? The tall and sturdy man weighed the half-eaten bread with dissatisfaction. Yes, this is all I have. Please, please don't kill me. He smirked. Not kill you? But this is nowhere near enough for me to eat. In the apocalypse, with no laws to abide by, only the cruelty of human nature remains. I clearly saw the man dig out a dagger from his pocket, the moonlight reflecting off its sharp blade. Turns out he didn't come for the bread at all. He had planned from the beginning to kill me. Damn it. I never would have imagined that a zombie would give me food to fill my stomach, only for a fellow human to try to kill me. It's truly disheartening. Close your eyes, it'll be quick and painless. I stiffly pulled the corners of my mouth. Thank you. But I'll say the same to you. In the next second, the man was suddenly knocked down by a force from behind. Standing there was none other than the handsome zombie who had returned just a moment ago. I keenly noticed that the handsome zombie climbed up to my balcony through the drainpipe. In that instant, I strangely felt a sense of security. Saved, I'm saved. Unfortunately, things weren't that simple. The man was skilled in combat, ruthless, and cunning. And the handsome zombie had probably been injured during the fight with the muscular zombies during the day. Not only was he slow in his movements, but he also seemed hesitant and cautious. Gradually, he began to lose ground in the fight. What was even more terrifying was that the man's eyes and skin color started to change. It was a sign of mutation. It meant that he would lose his sense of pain, and his strength and agility would increase. If he was already so powerful as a human, how terrifying would he become as a zombie? It was unimaginable. "Run!" the handsome zombie struggled to say to me during the fight. He had been pushed to the edge of the balcony by the man, with his upper body hanging in the air. I also wanted to run, but my feet felt like they were nailed to the ground. Would the handsome zombie be killed? If I escaped, he definitely would be. Thinking about this, I quietly picked up the dagger dropped by the man. I rushed behind him at the fastest speed I had ever known and aimed for his heart. But then, I couldn't stab him. This guy was wearing a stab-proof vest. "You damn woman, how dare you ambush me?" The man was angered by my actions, and his eyes turned even grayer. He grabbed my collar with one hand and pulled me in front of him, dangling me alongside the handsome zombie on the railing. I turned my head and forced out a smile uglier than crying. "Sorry, I couldn't save you. Let's die together, and I'll treat you to a meal in heaven." Half closed, the handsome zombie's eyes looked weak, as if he could pass out at any moment. "Kiss me." His barely audible voice entered my ears in the silent night, and I almost thought it was an illusion. "What?" "Kiss me, just once, quickly." The man hadn't fully turned into a zombie yet, and his brain hadn't become useless for the time being. Upon hearing this, he chuckled and said, "Even when you're about to die, you still can't help showing affection. Am I just a part of your little love show? Go to hell." After saying that, he let go of his grip on the handsome zombie's neck and pushed him hard. I watched helplessly as the handsome zombie fell uncontrollably backwards, so nervous that I forgot to breathe. We were on the 8th floor of the building. If he fell, wouldn't he turn into a pancake? At the critical moment, I gritted my teeth. I hooked my arm around the back of the handsome zombie's head and leaned in. In the instant our lips touched, I clearly saw the handsome zombie's eyes widen suddenly, and his gray eyes lit up several degrees, as if he had been fully charged. And then, the man's head was smashed. I saw the handsome zombie's hands hook onto the railing, maintaining a hanging position, while his legs clamped around the man's head. With a reverse scissor motion, he brought down the nearly 200-pound body to the ground. Immediately after, he pushed me into the bedroom and said without looking back, "Don't look." Then he closed the balcony door. Facing the man who had saved my life twice, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. How should I address you? The handsome zombie hadn't recovered from the recent kiss. He glanced at me, then quickly looked away, his face turning as red as a tomato. I don't remember." "Then I'll call you Z, all right?" He nodded. He took out several boxes from his pocket and placed them in front of me. They were all medicines, brand new, as if they had just been taken off the shelf. I looked at Z with confusion. He explained, "You have the smell of blood on you. You're injured and need to take medicine." The smell of blood? Was he talking about my period? So he left after delivering the food because he thought I was injured and went to find medicine for me? At first, he was hesitant and cautious when fighting with the man, afraid of damaging the medicine in his arms, was he? I figured it all out and felt exhausted. I lay on the sofa with a desolate expression. Compared to the spirited real zombies across from me, I seemed more like a zombie myself. "Why did you do all this?" I didn't think there were any good Samaritans among the zombies, especially considering that Z had brutally bitten a girl right in front of me. He must have had his own motives. Could it be that he saw me as a backup source of food? After fattening me up, he would braise me, steam me, and make sashimi. The more I thought about it, the more panicked I became, and a cold sweat broke out on my back. And then I heard Z say, "Because you are my lover." My eyes widened in disbelief. Help, being someone's lover as a zombie is worse than being killed. I apologize for my recklessness. It's not a good idea to have a zombie as a lover. But if that person is the zombie king, it's a different story. That's right, Z is the one and only zombie king. His scent and blood naturally intimidate other zombies. With just a glance, he can make them kneel in submission. Of course, there are always a few stubborn ones, like that muscular zombies. If zombies could talk, I bet they would shout, "Long live our king," or something like that. And the most important thing is, he has intelligence and thoughts. Although not very high, I must say. The 18th day since the outbreak of the zombie virus. As usual, I opened the bedroom door right after waking up. Immediately, I received food from outside, or rather from zombie. Thank you. I took a bite of the bread and it turned out to be my favorite pork floss flavor. Z had a faint smile on his lips. The sunlight shone through the window, making his pale skin almost transparent. No need to thank me, it's the least I can do. Lately, he has been speaking more fluently, and his logic has become clearer. Every day, he brings me fresh food, daily necessities, and some interesting little trinkets from outside. For example, yesterday, he mysteriously slipped a handful of gold and diamonds into my pocket. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you bring these for? Z smiled shyly. They're shiny and pretty, so I thought I'd give them to you. I looked at the young zombie in front of me, deeply moved. This poor guy. After being infected with the love-struck brain, he has been making so many actions that go against his instincts. In these past few days, I have figured out the reason behind Z's unusual behavior. The problem must lie with that girl. She is a top-level love-struck brain. Her power is so great that even zombies can't resist it. After Z consumed the love-struck brain, the first person he saw was me. So, he automatically took me as his lover. At the beginning, people are inherently good, but their natures diverge as they grow. The sound of reading echoed in the room. After a while, the zombie put down the book and turned to me with eager eyes. I praised him, not bad, you deserve a hug. Then I reached out and gently embraced Z. In the course of spending time together, Z and I became more familiar with each other. I started teaching him how to read and write, trying to educate him with words and awaken the humanity deep within him. At first, Z was unwilling. He didn't like books and even tore a few of them when he got angry. So, I had to resort to a trick. If you don't want to learn, then you can't have hugs. You have to stay 2 meters away from me every day. This made Z obedient. He was probably influenced by the love-struck brain. If he didn't have close contact with his lover, which is me, for a long time, he would become restless, anxious, and even weak. Seeing the zombie studying diligently at the table, I couldn't help but feel proud. Z proved the sayings the student surpasses the master and fight fire with his actions. He had already learned most of the books in the house. So yesterday, I sent Z to the bookstore to buy a few books with zero cost. Little did I know that after he went there, he set his sights on a book called The Art of Dealing. He secretly brought it back and read the whole book while I was sleeping. As a result, the following conversation took place between us. What about dinner? I got up, opened the door, and asked the zombie sitting empty-handed on the couch. Z, with a mischievous look on his face, raised a finger. A hot dog for a hug, a bag of bread for a kiss. I swallowed nervously and asked, what about hotpot? The effect of reading was remarkable. Now, besides his appearance, Z's behavior and actions were no different from those of a normal human being, and his intelligence was also high. Upon hearing my question, he smirked and beckoned me with his finger. That's a bit expensive. Come here, and I'll tell you slowly. I remained silent for a while. Then I closed the bedroom door with a bang and locked it. 1 day later, when the bedroom door was knocked for the umpteenth time, I opened my eyes and heard the lovesick zombie outside pleading desperately. Gwen, I'm sorry, don't starve yourself. I promise I won't do it again. Please come out and have a meal. It was only when Z's voice became hoarse from shouting that I got out of bed, once again smiling triumphantly in my heart. Humph, I know I will be the winner. Life went on with ups and downs, and it passed by quietly. In the blink of an eye. It had been a month since the zombie virus outbreak. Perhaps even the Earth knew that humanity was going through a catastrophe, as the weather had been gloomy and overcast for consecutive days. The streets were filled with human limbs and broken cars, and the roadside shops had been looted and emptied. The scene was even more brutal than in zombie movies. The city seemed to have become a dead city. If it weren't for Z, I would have been long died. Speaking of Z, I suddenly remembered some strange things that had happened recently. Z had been spending more and more time outside searching for food, and I couldn't see him around noon anymore. The amount of food he brought back had also decreased significantly. Sometimes it was just a piece of bread, sometimes just a bottle of water. And sometimes, he would come back empty-handed, only carrying wounds of various sizes. When I casually asked him about these wounds while helping him bandage them, he evaded the question and came up with all sorts of excuses, even mentioning being attacked by crazed zombies. He was the zombie king, how could he be attacked by zombies? But I didn't ask further. If he couldn't hide it anymore, he would naturally tell me. There was no point in constantly asking. Sure enough, it happened this evening. After being gone for a whole day, Z pushed open the bedroom door and appeared before me. Under my shocked gaze, he knelt down on the ground, his arms showing deep wounds down to the bone. He no longer hid it and weakly revealed the truth. I'm sorry, Gwen. I can't find food for you anymore. 4 days ago, a human rescue team arrived in the city. I was stunned for a second. A surge of uncontrollable joy welled up inside me. A human rescue team. Was this catastrophe finally going to end? But just as a smile was about to form on my face, Z continued speaking. At the same time, they are also clearing out the zombies. I was dumbfounded. Z, too, was a zombie. So it turned out that Z's wounds were inflicted by humans while he was out searching for food. And he had been spending more and more time searching for food to avoid being hunted down by humans. The reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted to spend more time with you. But now, you don't need me to provide you with food and protection anymore. They are searching for survivors, and it won't be long before they find us. Gwen, I have been happy every second I spent with you. I really wish I were a normal person. As I bandaged C's wounds, he kept talking nonstop, his mouth never stopping. I raised my gaze and traced the contours of Z's profile with my eyes. He had sharp features and delicate facial features, enough to catch a glimpse of his former vigor before the mutation. I couldn't help but feel emotional. Time flies so fast. Just last month, when I first met Z, he was a fierce and savage zombie with limited intelligence, only able to speak one word at a time. But who could have imagined that now he could even recite chef d'oeuvre? Where are you going? I spoke calmly. Z didn't mention parting in any of his sentences, but every sentence hinted at it. But where could he go? Humans wouldn't set up a zombie shelter. Once he was discovered, he would face a hail of bullets. Z's gaze dimmed. In the book, it says that humans and zombies are on different paths. My existence is a threat to you, so I plan to. I finished his unfinished sentence. So you plan to voluntarily be cleared, is that it? Z paused for a moment, then nodded hesitantly. I smiled and said nothing. After bandaging his wounds, I sat on the sofa, bowing my head, lost in thought. Suddenly, a shadow fell before me. Z stood in front of me, slowly crouching down, his hands holding my face. I met his devout gaze and froze. I watched as he leaned in, and then I felt the soft, cool touch of his lips. As our breaths intertwined, silent tears fell from someone's eyes, allowing me to taste a hint of saltiness. Goodbye, he said. As the figure of the zombie was about to disappear at the door, I shouted. The zombies do need to be cleared. But you are human, not a zombie. Do you need to be cleared as well? Zia's footsteps paused, he turned around, his face filled with surprise. I stared into his eyes and repeated firmly. You are human, not a zombie. If it wasn't for Z, I would have starved to death even if I wasn't killed by that man. Do I have to watch him die now? I can't do it. Besides, I didn't say anything wrong. Z, indeed, is a human. As far as I know, the current zombie virus has evolved. Once infected, it's certain death. And then the human body will be taken over and controlled by the zombie virus. But the reason why the Zombie King became the Zombie King must be because of his exceptional abilities. Z didn't die. He not only has thoughts and can speak, but also has a faint breath and heartbeat. It's just that his original nature was more inclined towards being a zombie, with slow thinking and ferocity. It was the girl's love-struck brain that awakened his humanity. Later, with my companionship, his humanity was fully awakened. So now, all I need to do is completely transform him into a human. A human that no one can detect. Looking at the man in the mirror with dark pupils and a healthy complexion, Z averted his gaze uncomfortably. Gwen, I look strange. I adjusted his face to face the mirror again. Not strange, you originally looked like this. Probably because it was the first time you wore colored contact lenses, Z felt a bit uncomfortable and reflexively wanted to rub his eyes. I stopped him. Don't rub them. From now on, you have to wear them every day during the day, until the rescue team arrives, and you can pass as a human. Z listened to me obediently and put his hand down. After tidying up the foundation and blush on the table, I suddenly remembered a very important question. Z, you need a proper name, right? You really can't remember your previous name? Z frowned and pondered for a moment before uttering a word. Styles. I was speechless. Styles is my surname. Never mind, you can also use my surname, Styles. Now that we have a surname, what should the first name be? I racked my brain for a long time, and suddenly a flash of inspiration came to me, and a word naturally emerged in my mind. Zane Styles? Z's eyes lit up. Zane Styles, sounds good. I forced a smile and didn't say anything more. When I blurted out the name Zane Styles, it felt so smooth, as if I had said it 1,000 times before. At the same time, my head was filled with waves of pain. It felt like something was about to come out, but I couldn't recall it, and it was so uncomfortable that I wanted to hit the wall. Forget it. It's probably not something important. I won't think about it. When the door was knocked, both Z and I, oh no, Zane Styles, felt a tightness in our hearts. Today is the 8th day since the rescue team entered the city. Looking out of the window of my house onto the street, the zombies that usually wander around have disappeared. Instead, there was a fire in the suburbs that burned for a whole day and night, and there was a smell of rotten flesh in the air. Before opening the door, I turned back to the man who was sitting on the sofa and said, "Remember the promise you made to me. No matter whether our plan succeeds or not, if you dare to harm a human, I will take your place and pay for it." For a person with a love-struck brain, this threat is undoubtedly the most intimidating. Zane quickly shook his head and solemnly promised, "Absolutely not. I am human. I will not harm my own kind." I smiled satisfiedly. Then I took a deep breath and pressed down the doorknob. "You finally came." I reenacted the scene. I hugged the person who came in, tears streaming down my face with excitement. I portrayed the image of a person who had suffered in distress, endured hardships, and finally received redemption. The rescue team members were stunned for a while before raising their hands to pat my back in comfort. "Don't be afraid, the disaster is over. The person behind is your boyfriend, right? Pack up your things and come with us to a safe place." The rescue team chose a sturdy high-rise building as the rescue center. All the survivors are inside. When I stepped in and saw the scene inside, my heart was deeply shocked. These people all look thin and haggard. Compared to the faces of other survivors who look like they have been through a famine, Zane and I look like we just finished a vacation. As expected. As soon as Zane and I appeared, hundreds of eyes turned towards us, full of scrutiny and curiosity. The next second, a middle-aged man with a righteous appearance walked towards us from a distance. He should be the leader of the rescue team. He scanned Zane up and down with his sharp eyes and asked, "Are you also a survivor?" My heart tightened, and my forehead instantly broke out in a sweat. "I hope we won't be exposed so soon." Compared to me, Zane remained calm. Facing the sharp gaze of the other person, he nodded without changing his expression. "Yes." Captain Odin fell silent. But a few seconds later, he suddenly burst into laughter, patting Zane's shoulder in a hearty manner. "Good lad, even at a time like this, you still have the mood to put on makeup. Your mental resilience is extraordinary." I secretly sneered in my heart. "I'm afraid we'll scare you if we don't put on makeup." Captain Odin didn't suspect a thing and kindly asked us to rest, saying that dinner would be served soon. Zane and I found an empty seat. As we sat down, we exchanged a knowing glance and burst into laughter at the same time. It was a false alarm, and it felt great. Soon, the rescue personnel served food to each of us. Zane and I were also hungry for 2 days, so we immediately began to devour the food like the other survivors. But halfway through the meal, I suddenly felt a burning gaze next to me, staring directly in our direction. It was a girl who looked about 7 or 8 years old. "You've been complaining about being hungry all the time. Why aren't you eating? Why are you staring at them?" Her father also noticed her unusual behavior and knocked on her bowl in front of her, scolding her. The little girl snapped out of it and pointed at Zane, saying to her father, "Daddy, I've seen this brother before." A sense of foreboding suddenly rose in my heart. The next second, the girl continued, "He's a zombie." I couldn't help but sigh and think, "Fate, you're really messed up." It turns out that the girl's family owns a convenience store, not far from my place downstairs. Whenever Zane went to her family's convenience store to find food, the girl hiding in the attic would always see him through the cracks in the floor. And that's why today's scene happened. As soon as those words were spoken, the sounds of swallowing and chewing instantly ceased, and everyone turned their gaze towards Zane. For these survivors who had narrowly escaped death, the words zombie were a forbidden zone that couldn't be touched. Their minds were always on edge, and just a slight mention of this word would have a tremendous impact. Zombie? That kid said he's a zombie. A zombie has infiltrated the shelter? Run, run. The surrounding survivors started to panic, and even the unaware crowd in the distance followed suit. In just a few seconds, chaos erupted on this floor. There were even rescue teams rushing over with guns. Zane was already standing still, not knowing how to react. His pitch-black pupils looked at me, filled with helplessness. Gwen, I took a deep breath, gave him a comforting look, as if to say, I'm here for you. Then, I suddenly stood up and screamed. That's enough! Instantly, silence fell around us. Ignoring their terrified expressions, I continued to speak. The zombie she saw before was my lover's twin brother. He was bitten and mutated by a group of zombies in front of my lover, losing his humanity. And now, he's nothing more than ashes in the fire outside the city. As I said this, I covered my face and burst into tears of sorrow. This is the eternal pain in my lover's heart. Many people present had witnessed their own relatives and friends being attacked by zombies. Seeing this scene, they couldn't help but recall those horrifying images and tears welled up in their eyes. However, there were still some rational survivors who had doubts. Someone hiding in the distance shouted, "Why should we believe whatever you say? If you say he's not a zombie, prove it to us." Prove it? I silently chuckled under my hand covering my face. Then, I lowered my hand, turned my head, and said to the man who spoke, "Prove it? All right then. Have you ever seen a zombie who can recite Romeo and Juliet? Knowledge changes destiny." Ever since Zane recited a long passage from Romeo and Juliet in front of everyone, his suspicion of being a zombie was completely cleared. After all, who would have thought that a zombie could have such a wide range of knowledge? This city is a heavily affected area by the zombie virus. With a population of nearly 10 million, less than 5% have survived. So, until the zombies are completely eradicated, Zane and I have taken shelter in a refuge. When the rescue team heard that we were in a romantic relationship, they specifically assigned us a separate room. Perhaps due to the dense population in this building, Zane felt insecure and was always in a downcast state. However, he showed no inclination to harm anyone. He just became more clingy than usual. He liked to hold me in private. His arms tightly wrapped around me, embracing me silently without any other movements. It was pure and innocent. And I never refused Zane's embrace. Because he only has me. I always feel like I've known you for a very, very long time. In the arms of a zombie, I suddenly spoke. Zane rested his head on my shoulder, looking tired. He smiled shyly at my words. I feel the same way. I clicked my tongue in wonder. Why? Why is there such a familiar feeling of destiny? Zane spoke whimsically. Perhaps we were in love in a past life. The book says that two people who love each other, if their fate is not fulfilled, will meet again in the next life. I couldn't help but laugh. How did we end up talking about past lives and present lives? But it's not impossible. Otherwise, where does this familiarity come from? On the 57th day since the outbreak of the zombie virus, humanity finally welcomed the dawn of victory. The virus has been contained. The anxious and restless days are about to pass. But it cannot be denied that this is a catastrophe that can be recorded in history, not only in our country but also around the world. Countless people have perished, countless people have become displaced. The shadow of this disaster will not dissipate from people's hearts for decades or even centuries to come. In a few more days, we will be able to leave the refuge. Today, the rescue team said that they have invited an expert from abroad for us to attend a lecture on zombie virus. This foreign expert is named John. He has a high reputation worldwide. 2 months ago, when the zombie virus had not yet erupted, he keenly sensed the impending disaster and quickly alerted his own country. It is precisely because of this that his country was able to escape this calamity almost unscathed. He is a national hero. Wherever he goes, he receives the admiration and respect of humanity. The makeshift lecture hall was crowded with people. Zane and I sat in the back row. I listened attentively while he leaned on my shoulder and dozed off. I nudged his head and whispered in a volume that only the two of us could hear. Get up and listen too. What if we can find a way to turn you back into a normal human? Yes, I always believed that one day Zane will be able to return to being a normal human. Although he looks no different from a normal person now, he can't wear colored contact lenses and foundation for the rest of his life, right? Zane obediently sat up straight, blinked his drowsy eyes, and directed his gaze to the stage. However, his expression suddenly changed when he saw John's face. He began to uncontrollably tremble all over. I could even hear the sound of his teeth chattering in fear. What's wrong with you? I became anxious. Gwen Stiles, take me away, take me away. He grabbed my hand tightly. This was the first time Zane called me by my full name, and I suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation. For a brief moment, I panicked, but then quickly regained my composure. I held Zane's hand, reassuring him. All right, I'll take you out. As we walked out with our heads down, I noticed that people around us glanced at us and then quickly averted their gazes. We made it to the entrance without any trouble. However, just as we were about to step into the lecture hall, Captain Odin stopped us with a raised hand. He had a strong impression of Zane, this guy who liked to wear makeup, and he asked me with concern, "What's wrong with him?" Zane, still recovering from his recent fright, was sweating profusely with beads of sweat dripping down his face. He was breathing heavily and kept his head down, too afraid to look at anyone. I quickly made up a story. My boyfriend is having an asthma attack. He didn't bring his medication, so I'm taking him to. Captain Odin interrupted me with a louder voice. Asthma? Oh, this is serious business. Fortunately, John is here today. He's quite knowledgeable in this area. Both Zane and I widened our eyes in surprise. But Zane was even more nervous, forgetting to breathe. Wait a minute. But it was too late for my objection. Captain Odin had already waved towards someone in the distance. Dear John, we have an asthma patient here who needs your help. What happened next became a nightmare for many years to come. Zane was taken away right in front of me. After Captain Odin called out, Dr. John came down from the stage. When he saw Zane, he first looked shocked, then couldn't help but burst into laughter. In a fluent English, he assumed the role of a savior and said, Captain Odin, you actually let a zombie sneak into the shelter. That's quite a big oversight. His voice was not soft, and everyone present could hear him clearly. For a moment, the air was so still that you could hear a pin drop. Don't talk nonsense. Who's the zombie? I calmly refuted him. Dr. John turned his gaze towards me, and he was once again taken aback. You, remember? Remember what? I stood in front of Zane, guarding him and staring at Dr. John with caution. After examining my face suspiciously for a while, Dr. John suddenly smiled and shook his head. Never mind. Your boyfriend is a zombie, and you probably don't know, right? Step aside, or he will harm you. Listen, hand him over to us. I repeated again, he is not a zombie. There was a voice deep inside me that kept saying, I cannot hand Zane over to him, absolutely not. At this moment, Zane was staring fiercely at Dr. John, clenching his teeth, his eyes bloodshot, as if suppressing an overwhelming urge to kill. Sweat trickled down his forehead, smudging his foundation and revealing a small patch of strange pale skin. Dr. John noticed it sharply and his smile grew wider. He whispered something to Captain Odin. After listening, Captain Odin looked at Zane and widened his eyes in astonishment. And then, Zane was taken away. Captain Odin said that Zane was the only person who was infected with the zombie virus, but didn't die. Dr. John, being kind-hearted, didn't have Zane cleared but instead took him back, trying to find a way to turn him back into a normal person. This action of his made his image even more towering in the eyes of the world. Many countries made statues of him, standing in the Hall of Great People, praising him as the savior of humanity. And at that time, I was confronting John at the experimental base he set up in the country. Are you saving him or torturing him? I grabbed John's collar and screamed like a madman. In the laboratory beside us, through the glass window, I could clearly see a withered zombie lying there. His hands and feet were not restrained. But even so, he had no ability to resist or escape. In just a few days, John tortured Zane until he was nothing but skin and bones. Zane lay weakly there, with half-closed grayish-white eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, making it impossible to tell if he was still alive. I looked at that figure, feeling as if my heart was being twisted, tears falling like broken beads. Zane. John pushed me away, straightened his collar, and casually said, "He's a zombie, so what if he's dead?" But when he brought Zane back, he clearly said that he was looking for a way to cure him. I was furious. He is a human. He is a human. No, he's a zombie, the first zombie ever born in the world. I was stunned. How do you know? There was a vague and absurd guess in my heart. At the same time, my head started to ache again, as if being devoured by tens of thousands of ants, making me unbearably painful. John looked at me as if he were looking at a stray dog struggling on the roadside. "You don't need to know the truth. I can't turn him back into a human either, so take him away." I supported Zane. We walked quickly, afraid of being caught up by someone. But just as we stepped out of the experimental base, we still heard the alarm. John shouted from behind. "That woman secretly took away the zombie. Kill her, otherwise the zombie virus will come back." I clenched my teeth. Sure enough, he had no intention of letting Zane and me return alive. The experimental base was built halfway up the mountain. I quickly took Zane and hid in the woods. He was so thin that his bones were protruding, and his breathing was extremely weak. He kept his head down and never responded. At this moment, I hated my own powerlessness. He protected me in the apocalypse, but now I couldn't protect him. "Zane, hold on, I'll take you back." I stumbled, crying and talking. "No, don't cry." In a coma, the zombie heard my crying and instinctively uttered 3 indistinct sounds. It was just like the scene when we first met. I started crying even harder. The footsteps behind us caught up, and the conversations of the security personnel clearly reached my ears. "We must not let the zombie escape. Shoot. What if we hit that woman? She's aiding and abetting, she's also a criminal. Shoot. Gwen, leave me behind." "No." I used the trees as cover and continued running desperately. "Gwen, have you fallen in love with me too?" "Yes, I have. That's why we have to live a long and happy life together. Neither of us can die here." Zane weakly curled his lips, his breath hanging by a thread. "Unfortunately, humans and zombies are on different paths. Forget about me." Before I could react, Zane used the last of his strength to push me down to the ground. After a few gunshots, silence fell around us. My mind went blank for a few seconds. I raised my hand and felt a hot bullet hole in Zane's back. Blood gushed out, instantly staining my palm. "Zane!" I cried out his name. At the moment of my lover's impending death, countless images flooded my mind and I remembered everything. "I'll protect you in the future." We were both orphans in the same orphanage. The director named me Zane. "I chose the same major as you did. You can't get rid of me. Gwen, I like you. Be my girlfriend." "John, I'm your experiment. Please don't kill Gwen, I beg you." So it turns out that Zane and I had already known each other. So it turns out that it was fate. In the darkness that seemed to devour everything, I was overwhelmed with grief, unaware that the person in my arms was losing blood, the pale color fading from his skin. Today is the 89th day since humanity eradicated the zombie virus. I pushed open the door to the hospital room as usual. I put the lilies in the vase and then wiped the patient's body with a damp cloth. A month ago, John's conspiracy was exposed. He thought that Zane and I would definitely die, so he said many things he shouldn't have at the research base. But he didn't expect that I recorded everything. And he didn't expect that before going to the research base, I called Captain Odin and asked him to save Zane and me in case of an emergency. "Anything you do will leave some traces." John is a true devil. He used countless innocent lives as stepping stones to achieve his everlasting fame. He was once admired, but now he is hated. But I don't want to care about all of that anymore. I only care about, when will you wake up, Zane? The man lay quietly, his eyes closed, a natural curve formed at the corner of his mouth, looking as if he were peacefully asleep. It wasn't until my memory returned that I understood. Zane didn't just happen to show up at my doorstep before. He escaped from John's company when the zombie virus broke out and the company's personnel evacuated. Then, following his instincts, he came to my house and waited outside my door. And it wasn't a girl's love-struck brain that awakened his humanity, but me. What a fool you are. As I wiped his arm, I chattered on. Wake up soon, I miss you. Although I said I would never care about you in this life or the next, now that you're awake, I can take back those words. Cooking is so difficult. I've been learning for a week and still can't do it. Wake up early and cook for me, okay? As the sun set, the man still showed no response. I straightened my sore back. I'll come see you again tomorrow. I stood up and grabbed my bag. Just as I was about to leave, I added one more sentence. Oh, by the way, I've been bullied while you were gone. I waited silently for 3 seconds, but there was still silence. My tense spine suddenly relaxed, and I disappointedly pursed my lips, turning to leave. Just as I was about to step out of the hospital room, a faint male voice drifted behind me, accompanied by a long unspoken hoarseness. Who? I turned back in shock, meeting a pair of pitch-black pupils. He stubbornly repeated his question. Who bullied you? I'll help you, I'll beat him up. I laughed wholeheartedly, tears flowing freely. Even in the apocalypse, his love would still be the last immortal phoenix. Extra chapter. My name is Zane Stiles. Gwen Stiles is my lover. We met when we were very young because we grew up in the same orphanage. I remember the first time I saw her, she was being bullied. Surrounded by a group of older children, she looked even more frail, like a sprout. I think every boy has a hero dream when they are young. At that time, I couldn't bear to see it, so I picked up a stick and chased the bullies away. I helped the girl up and chivalrously said to her, I'll protect you from now on. I kept my promise. From kindergarten to adulthood, I always protected her and never let her be bullied again. After the college entrance examination, both Gwen and I were admitted to the same prestigious university, and we both chose the biology major. After graduating from college, we confirmed our romantic relationship and then entered the same biotechnology company. She often joked, "You're such a clingy bug." I proudly replied, "I promise to protect you in the future, and I'm keeping my word." The main business of our company is the development of vaccines, reagents, and medicines. They are all things that save lives. But Gwen and I always felt that something was off, but we couldn't put our finger on it. Until one day, before leaving work, Gwen panicked and told me that she had accidentally discovered the company's secret. It turns out that this foreign-funded company is ostensibly producing drugs, but secretly it is developing a zombie virus. And it's not hard to guess which countries these viruses will be released in. Before it is fully developed, I decided to obtain evidence and report it to stop this monstrous conspiracy. But as fate would have it, well, we were caught while trying to gather evidence. Dr. John stood in front of me, holding a syringe, no longer the kind person he used to be. "So, you found out, huh? Well, it doesn't matter. Both of you are orphans. Even if you disappear from this world, no one will notice. I happen to need a test subject for the virus. Choose between yourself and your lover." I lay on the iron bed, my hands and feet bound. I turned my head to look at Gwen, who was also bound. Tears streamed down her face as she said, "Zane, if you dare to choose yourself, I will never acknowledge you in this life or the next." I smiled, my eyes filled with bitterness. But I didn't want to cry in front of her. "But what should we do?" "I promise to protect you in the future." Under her terrified gaze, I decisively turned to John and said, "John, I'll be your test subject, just spare my lover. Please." The sound of Gwen's despairing cry echoed in the laboratory. Electroshock-induced amnesia. She will forget about my conspiracy, and she will forget about you. When John told me this, the needle had already pierced the skin of my arm and the cold liquid slowly entered my bloodstream. Forget about me. What about me? Will I forget about her? John shrugged indifferently. Of course. Do you think love can withstand the zombie virus? It will erase all your humanity, leaving only instinct. Instinct to bite humans, instinct to devour raw flesh, instinct to destroy everything. My consciousness began to blur. Uncontrollably, images of Gwen's eyes and eyebrows appeared before me, along with her expression when she called my name. "Zane, why did you choose the same university as me again? Zane, are you raising pigs? I can't eat so much. Zane, I agreed to be your girlfriend. Zane." John was wrong. Loving her is my instinct. The next second, I closed my eyes in a state of chaos. After Gwen regained her memory, one day she jokingly told Zane about the misunderstanding they had before. At first, I thought you ate the love-struck brain, so you protected me. Zane paused while cooking and furrowed his brows. Love-struck brain? Do I need to eat that? I'm already have a love-struck brain, okay? After a while, he muttered softly. It seems more appropriate to call it Gwen brain. Gwen burst into laughter. Indeed, John was wrong. Love is an even more amazing existence than the zombie virus. The place where she stands is the home he longs to rest in.